I spent the rest of the day to deal with anything you needed to deal with. Couldn't get a.
I can read everything on my iPhone. On my iPad. I just couldn't pull the agenda. I took my password and one more time today.
That's what he was asking you for my change password. That was a lot.
That's where my fingers can do automatically. And we are.
We'll go ahead and start. The board's back in session. Sorry, Dr. Moten. My apologies. Back in open session from coming out of closed session. First item under the agenda under open session is the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand and repeat that together.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we've got approval of the agenda. We do have one thing to add to the agenda, unless there's anything else, is we'll add it under number 7, I guess, under action there. It'll be the Westwood property request. We'll add that on the agenda. There anything else?
Just what I'd emailed you is the amended overnight summer keynotes amendment to the amended agenda. It's already
Okay, you've got
visible
that
on
at
there.
6, yeah. Entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I move we use the amended agenda.
To have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
Finishing.
Next, we've got Dr. Cox with a couple items for success and upcoming announcements and dates.
Well, this is my favorite time of the year. I say that several times during the year, but this really is it too much? Too loud. Okay, back up. All right. Is that better?
Yes.
My teacher voice is okay? All right, just want to make sure. I have my voice back and I don't have to yell anymore. We had graduation on Friday night, which was and Friday afternoon, which was a wildly successful couple of events. And what an impressive group of kids that graduated from Ashe County Early College High School and Ashe County High School on Friday. I'm just incredibly proud of them. They were outstanding in so many ways. We know what their intentions are. They know what their intentions are for what's next. Some are going into the workforce, some are going into the military, some are going to right here in Ashe County to Wilkes Community College, Ashe campus. And we have a large number of students with full rides to prestigious universities and are really able to make a lot of choices. So it's always great seeing what kids intend to do and that they're able to and have the skill set to do that, thanks to, of course, their parents, to the students' hard work, and to our teachers and staff who pour into them from the time that they enter in pre-K all the way up to the 12th grade. And I had the pleasure of reminding some of our teachers this week who may not feel quite as attached to a graduation rate or a dropout rate, and I reminded them what a difference they make, because they were the ones who taught them how to read or how to zip up their zipper or to make new friends and the things that kids grow those skills that are so important. So thank you to everybody who made those events successful, and congratulations to the class of 2024. And I know we have a couple of kiddos who are still working to meet some of those requirements. And so we are cheering for you and really pulling for you to make it that last step of the way. And so we'll have a few more that have a summer graduation. And hopefully when we do, we'll invite to a ceremony at that point in time. We have had lots of things to celebrate, one of them being today. Our letters training is finally over. So our elementary teachers and our exceptional children's teachers who have been doing the training for the last several years, few years, are finished. And so they celebrated today with a nice lunch and cake, and were able to pat each other on the back. That was wildly successful as well. We've had lots of different events. Some of them we highlighted the last time, but they actually happened since then, including our first annual Best of the Best dinner for students. And thank you to our board members who were there to highlight our kids and their families. Thank you to our high school and early college principal who helped to guide them along the way. That was one of my favorite things, was just to see the outstanding leaders who have come through Ashe County. We had our annual teachers dinner. This year we did it at Jefferson Landing and celebrated 37 teachers. Not all of them were able to be there that evening, but our beginning teachers and their the mentors that we have through Appalachian State University. So that was a fun evening. And then we broke ground back on May 20th for our new track and turf at the high school, which I am so excited to see what, we have the pictures of what it's going to look like, but I can't wait to see it come to fruition. Lots of busy things. I've got Dr. Susan Moken here with me by my side as today's our first official day with us in this capacity, and lots of new people who officially started today in their principal and assistant principal roles, and hopefully we'll have one more this evening after the personnel agenda is approved. And we've got lots of great summer things happening. So summer school starts next week. However, today summer meals started. And so there's a free summer meals program for kids ages 18 and younger. Ashe County Schools is partnering with North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And so all children in Ashe County, 18 and younger, so if you can get on and walk into the building, then you can have a free breakfast or free lunch. They're at select locations. It's posted on our website, but if anybody wants to know, breakfast is served from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning and lunch from 11 to 1. And this week, Monday through Friday, we have Mountain View Elementary School is the site. And then June 10th through the 27th, or excuse me, Mountain View Elementary goes June 3rd to August 2nd. So it goes clear through the entire time, but starting on June 10th, when summer school begins, it's Monday through Thursday at Westwood Elementary and at Blue Ridge Elementary School. So no ID, no registration, you're 18 or younger, show up for free food. And so we hope that is, I hope people take us up on that. We love feeding, making sure our kids are fed. And then we've had endowment fund grant applications received, 14 total, and they were reviewed by a scoring committee. We had 13 winners that we will be highlighting in August following our golf tournament that's coming up on the 25th. And we finished EOGs. I think unscathed, yay. I think we're going into summer, we're finished. We're finished, okay, we're officially finished. And so that's a great thing. Project graduation happened and we had 140 participants, I think, out of the senior class, which is fantastic. Thank you to all the community members and staff members and others who helped make that night a success for our children. And then one final success for now. I mentioned our graduating class and their accolades. We've had a full ride to Duke, a full ride to NC State, lots of partial or full tuition scholarships all across our district. And the total awarded or accepted, now I don't know if this is the grand total, but was almost $1.5 million. It's huge. So congratulations to our kiddos. This was an amazing class. Between the early college and the high school, that's outstanding. So thank you to everybody who contributed to that. And also several of those were local scholarships. So thank you.
All right, is that it? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. Next we've got on the agenda is public comment. So as always, for public comment, I'll read the statement. In accordance with policy 2310, the board chairperson will recognize speakers in the order in which they are signed in. Each speaker will receive 3 minutes to present comments. However, the public comment session will not exceed 30 minutes total except by a majority vote of the board. If a speaker is unable to present all of his or her information within the specified time limit, the speaker may provide the board with additional information in written form. Please refrain from addressing specific employee or student concerns as part of public comment. Concerns can be directed to the district leadership as described in the policy 2310. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board, except to request clarifications to points made by the presenter. The board chairperson has the authority to speak on behalf of the board and to refer concerns to administration. Except in cases of emergency, information received during the presentations will not be acted upon at the time that it is received. I think we've got one signed up for public comment. I've got Mr. Adam Elliott.
Good evening. I would like to express my objections to the proposed policy of private service providers, a suggested blanket policy from the state that will have detrimental adverse effects on many children within Ashe County schools. In particular, my daughter, who is nonverbal autistic. My daughter has received ABA therapy through BCPS since 2019. During the last 5 years, she has shown a decline of adverse behaviors in the classroom. In 2019, she had a BB MAP score of 29 out of 170. By the end of 2023, the score was 123.5 out of 170. In 2019, her barriers to safety and learning score was 65 out of 96. Her most recent score was 19 out of 96. The goal is for BB MAP scores to increase and barrier scores to decrease, which has occurred. One major behavioral issue that has been addressed since day one has been elopements. We have gone from almost 60 unsafe elopements in 2019 to only 2 or 3 elopements in the 23-24 school year. Another area we have seen tremendous growth is from being completely nonverbal to 193 requests in a single day. That was just last week. Although she has shown this growth, she still has neurobehavioral issues to address and issues that will need to be addressed as she moves through school and life. Our goal will be for her to eventually not need this type of therapy, but we are not there yet. ABA therapy is a medical service prescribed by a developmental pediatrician. ABA has 27 evidence-based practices with 80% of those focused on behavior. ABA staff are well trained beyond a 40-hour module, which is the starting point for a BT or behavioral therapist. BTs are directly supervised by a BCBA, a board-certified behavioral analyst, participate in ongoing competency and fidelity checks quarterly, and attend ongoing staff trainings. Therapists work with teachers and staff to address behavior so that teachers can focus on teaching without disruption of instructional time. As I mentioned in my letter to each of you, this past school year has been an exceptional year of growth academically and behaviorally for my daughter because of collaborative efforts between her teacher, Ms. Angel Klein, support staff, and ABA therapists. BCPS or ABA is currently in or will be in 5 other public school districts as well as private and charter schools in North Carolina. Jennifer Custer, the EC director of Davie County Schools, said she is more than willing to speak to anyone about the success of ABA therapy in public school settings. I too am more than willing to discuss with you individually or as a board the impact and importance of ABA therapy in schools. I would like to end with a quote from my daughter's teacher, Miss Angel Klein, regarding ABA. Quote, as a teacher working in the classroom where ABA is provided to students, I have seen an increase in language and communication skills, improved focus and social skills, as well as memory and academic skills. I have witnessed a huge decrease in problematic behaviors, elopement and safety issues. I am totally in awe of how students respond to this intervention. I have witnessed great success in my classroom this year. End quote. Let us keep what is needed inside the classrooms for their academic success. These types of therapies are at 0 cost to the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Don't know, we did that, nobody else for public comment that I had on. But next we've got Miss Allison Kemp Sullivan, new middle school updates.
Good evening. Fred Johnson has requested a meeting, including Clark Nixon, Benoit Construction to go through the CMR contracts. That'll be happening tomorrow. We've also received the early construction design. It's a progress set and, has been sent out electronically. And, I have started reviewing it. It's quite involved, but, it will allow me to get a leg up on the, final set, but it's also been sent to Department of Insurance and DPI. And, also the transportation engineers have completed their data collection after receiving some, responsive comments from DOT, and they're finishing up their final recommendations. And we're gonna be reviewing those, releasing those to DOT. So that's some highlights for this month. Anybody have any questions?
Hi, Allison. Do we have a copy of the transportation MOU? Was that provided or is that anything that we would need to review?
It's a draft that, they had to go back and get data, so it's not finished. That's the data they collected. In early May, and that's what we're getting right now.
So it's still, we're still working on it.
Progress, yeah. So in the next week, it'll be available if you want to see it. Yeah, so you will get a chance to look at it. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And who currently serves as school representatives on the committee, like that, what we'll meet tomorrow?
Fred requested the meeting, so I'll be there. Dr. Cox will be there. The team from Vinoy will be there. Mike Kesterson will be there. I don't think David Bauer is going to be there. I'm not sure who else is coming with
Because it's not
Vinoy.
a contract.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, because it's contract.
Yeah, and Chad Robinson will be there.
So for all just general meetings though, who serves as our school representatives that attend the meetings? And I ask that because I'm being asked a lot of questions and then, naturally from the community and,
I'm
I'd
at
like to
all
know.
meetings.
I'd like to know who
Yeah, I'm at
I
all
refer those.
meetings.
Okay,
I'm at all meetings, and it depends on what the issue is. So it depends if it has electrical involved with it. Because, for example, I had a meeting regarding daylighting, and Anthony and I met. We were trying to get the electrician there, but it was the week before school's out, so
okay.
electrician wasn't there. So he and I met specifically.
So there's
for
no
example.
set committee that attends middle school?
No,
meetings?
there is a set meeting that, so every 2 weeks, we
Oh,
have a
yes.
Zoom that
Yeah.
includes Allison, myself, Anthony,
The Benoit team.
the Vinoy team, the architect team, so they're nuts and bolts, and then we have a lot of different side, like, Dr. Moken has been to countless meetings, Sherry Hines will be on it, we've had teachers, the team up here, Terry and her team, when we're talking about, picking out like vinyl versus tile in the bathrooms and the EC classrooms versus, it just depends on what it is, because not everybody needs to be there for because it's a lot. But Amy has a meeting coming up soon about security and
Door access.
door access. And so we're trying not to overburden anybody unless it's their area of expertise, but there's a lot of.
Yes, but we do have a bi-weekly Zoom meetings with Benoit, Clark Nixon, myself, Dr. Cox, Anthony, when he can come to. So does that?
It does. I think as a board, it's something that we may want to think about is having a board representative to attend as we get closer to actually starting the project. But that's a discussion.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask just to see because, and then if I had a question, I could ask a fellow board member. That
Yeah,
attends.
or you can always call me. I'm always
I
available
appreciate
too.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you so much. Next, we'll start into action items under the agenda. First we have is personnel. I have to be careful. I would usually say Mr. Putman on there, but I guess Dr. Moak and Dr. Cox there. Any questions for them concerning personnel that was presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the personnel.
I make a motion that we approve the personnel agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
I want to say congratulations to somebody. I just want to say congratulations to Brandon Bauer and I know that he's not in here right now, but I want to say congratulations to him on being named as an assistant principal at the middle school. And we have our, of course, new principal of the middle school, official as of today, Sherry Hines here. So thank you. Sherry, and wave. But Brandon Bowers, of course, will be at the middle school. And when I got to make that phone call, he was over the moon, ecstatic. And I think you guys are going to make a great team.
Thanks so much. All right, that's great. Next, we've got the consent agenda for the board to approve. Those are the minutes from the last meetings that we've had, including the regular monthly meeting and then the combined meeting with the Ashe County Commissioners. The Ashe County High School FFA request for summer overnight trips, the NCSBT errors and omissions, general liability fund, EEP MOU for Appalachian State University, the endowment grants, Maxim Healthcare Nursing Services. Last thing under consent agenda is the 24-25 beverage bid approval. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Next, we've got the approval for the 24 through 26 CTE plan. I think I see Mr. Pennington coming.
So, good evening, everyone. I want to just take a few moments, and each year we ask permission to apply for federal grants. Ms. Taylor did that, I believe, back in February or March or somewhere back in one of those months. And we've been working on the 24-26 comprehensive local plan since about August. Every year we come and we give the board an update on the good things happening in CTE, any challenges that we may have and how we're working around those. And I want to start off with that. Everything's included in your packet that we started off with. I'm going to be first looking at the goal summary there for the goal summary printout and what we're doing well in CTE. You have to remember CTE data is sometimes always a year behind. Sometimes they go back and they look at data from a year and a half ago. It all generates around our seniors who are concentrators. So senior concentrator is a student that completed a pathway in one of our many areas there at the high school. So that's why it takes a little while to get that data. And it isn't like we're talking about the EOCs that we just finished up or EOGs that we just finished up last week. We're talking about some historical data. So if you look at it, you're like, this isn't quite what our state data was. I'll explain that. If you have any questions, I'll get those there at the end. We always like to say that if you're a CTE completer, you have a better chance of graduating high school. And I'm proud to say our CTE graduation rate by our concentrators is 98%. The state graduation rate's 86.5 for last year. So we're excited. And that proves that if we can get students find them in a pathway, find them a place that they're excited about, that there's a greater chance that they'll graduate high school. Also, our CTE potential for our credentials last year went up to, we mentioned it several times, over 2,700. That's a 62%. That was an increase of like 140%. So we're excited about that. And then we always talk about EOGs and EOCs, but we also take our CTE state assessments, and they're in certain classes. We have a proof of learning in all classes, and that proof of learning could be a state test. It could be a performance-based model following a rubric, or it could be acquiring the credential. But last year, 77% of our students taking CTE tests were proficient, and proficient's measured as scoring a 70 or not a 60 or higher. So those are some pretty rigorous standards that our students are reporting out for us. Our enrollment over the last 2 years, we're seeing an almost a 20% increase in that. From the 21-23 plan, CTE made meaningful progress on 7 of the 8 federal indicators. And that's where they take a look at, and this is why our data is a little behind. They take those students that are senior concentrators, and they look back and say, how many were not proficient, how many were college and career ready, level 4s and 5s on Math 1, Math 1 or Math 3, depending on what they took Math 1. They took Math 1 in middle school, of course, they look for Math 3. How well did they score on their English 2 exam, and how well did they score on their biology exam? So those are some pretty rigorous standards. And when, like I said, in 21-23, we met meaningful progress, meaning we met 90% of the state determined benchmark for those students. Our CTSOs, again, they're often running, we're having regional state competitions and even with our national competitor this summer. So we're extremely proud of those. We continue to work with our businesses and business and industries. We had over 20 interns this past year. We hope those numbers keep growing. I think we're up to 30, 35 requests for next year. So I appreciate all the business partners that are willing to work with our young folks. We have at the end of each semester, we have a presentation with the interns. We invite the parents, the interns, administration, the businesses that support that host the intern, and they do a presentation out about their experience. And those are always wonderful to sit back and listen. Our presence in social media and brochures and course guides and whatnot, we listened to folks. We were coming out of a time where everything was different with COVID and the shutdown. So we had to look at different ways to spread the word about the good things with CTE. Our Instagram page is full board, it's full steam ahead. And of course, we have brochures and pamphlets and whatnot. You have some samples there with you in your packet. Collaboration, we continue to work with WCC. I think that packet that's in there as well. We created what's called a quad fold, and when you open that up in the middle, it's on the big giant 11 by 17 paper. It has all the pathways listed for the high school, and it has all the pathways also listed with the students and how they bridge to the community college. And we worked with our local articulations that was redone last summer. So when that came aboard, we jumped on board with our WCC partners to see what automatically articulated. So if a student takes one high school class or 2 high school series, maybe a CTE pathway, it can articulate at any community college in the state. And then we also work on some that are local that are just pertinent to Ashe County schools and Wilkes Community College. So those are some good things we've been working on. So in August, as I said, we started doing, it's basically a strategic plan for CTE. It's what it is together. We go through several series of meetings and interviewing, talking to folks working with special populations, to recruitment and retention, to size, scope, and quality of our classes, to our labor force. And then we also look at our performance indicators, and we break all of that down and we gather 2 sources of two major data sets in 2 areas. The first major source is those federal indicators. And again, that's how well our students are performing on their EOC test. And it's also the graduation dropout rate. How many students are in credentials? How well do they score on their test? And you can see there, those are the major areas we're looking at focusing in on for the 24-26 school year. We want to work on chronic absenteeism. That's something we hear from our businesses. Please, can we do something to help emphasize and encourage just please be here. Being here is step 1 of being a good employee. We're also always working on closing the disparity gaps in areas of English, math, and science, which is, of course, biology. And we're going to continue to work on several strategies, vocabulary strategies, essential math operations and measurements, ratios, and percentages. That comes to our CCRG math courses, and those are real big areas in the CTE class. We're also working on increasing the number of CTE completers, and we're working on making sure those completers have one of the 3 E's, whether they're enlisted, enrolled, or employed. That's something I know we're doing for everyone, but that's one of the areas we're focusing on. We want to continue to support and promote non-traditional participation. That deals with, I basically say a boy taking a class is predominantly something, a career that a female would go into, or vice versa. For example, we recruit everyone, but looking at the number of, for example, the number of young men going into health science, or the number of young ladies going into trades such as welding, engineering, automotive. So we're always working on that as well. Credential potential, I think we've set a big bar there. We just hope to continue to maintain that and offer the students the credentials. And then we're also working on the EL. We saw that our EL proficiency and state assessments were down a little bit, so we have some strategies in place there. When we gathered all the local needs from the community and businesses, and like I said, the different stakeholders that we have there, we want to continue to work on the absenteeism, again, hearing that from the community, from our businesses. The size, scope, and quality, we're going to ensure that the state mandated the career development and the strategic goal that every student have a plan past graduation. We're continue to work with that with our size, scope, and quality. Our career pathway implementation, we have the course guide that you have the link to in your packet. And we're going to take that and add local businesses, put names with faces instead of just saying, hey, we have construction job. We want to list our business partners and what that starting wage is. I don't want to use what NC Star or what NC Careers say. I want to use what our local folks are saying so that they have a real life, they have a personal contact with that. And let's see, where are we at here? Recruitment. One of the things we're going to do, we're going to do some content specific CTE staff development, professional development. We're freeing up some money so that teachers can go see best practice programs. They can go see best practice post-secondary. It's really hard to encourage a child to get graduation plus some more when we're not sure of all the opportunities. So we're working over the next 2 years, we'll be working on a specific PD and equal access. We're going to been working with Ms. Terry Richardson on this and looking at some job shadowing events for our freshman OCS students coming up. I know as they develop through to sophomores, juniors, and seniors, there's some very deliberate efforts there. We want to work and see what their interests are through some different interest inventories and give them a chance to do some job shadowing there. And then the last piece are the pathways that we're offering. The new ones we're including, we have civil engineering this year and Project Lead the Way next year. We're bringing back Project Lead the Way aerospace. GE was very excited about that, so they'll be one of our business partners with that as Vinoy's, they've jumped on board with the civil engineering, so that was a perfect coupling there. And also Adobe Academy, we started that in early college last year, but that's on schedule to start this year at Ashe County High School. So there was my 20-minute spiel. I promised everybody that I would try to do in less than 5 minutes. So does anyone have any questions about any of the statistics or data or goals that we've written about our local CTE plan?
Just hear good things out in the private sector for the businesses and industries that you partner with these students.
They've been excellent to work with and listen, and you know, they're the experts in that area, and we appreciate their participation and voice.
Can you share, Earl, with the board and everybody else, how CTE is helping with the new graduation requirement that starts with our incoming, was it freshmen?
The class of 2030.
The class of 2030, yes.
That sounds like a long way off.
But it's really not.
It's really not. So again, starting with the graduating class of 2030, which will be freshmen coming in 27, 25, in the 26, 27 school year. One of the classes they have to take is a computer science. So that's one of the initiatives of starting the Adobe Academy at Ashe County High School. It was very successful. At the early college, we had something very similar to it, but I think Adobe, that'll give students access to credentials in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, which are all they're very sought after credentials there. But so that's one of the areas we're looking at. Of course, our Project Lead the Way classes, those are the two entry levels, and they've changed the course codes on me 3 times now in the last 6 months. But it's the intro to engineering and then the design and modeling classes. I believe those 2 classes are also part of our computer science graduation requirement that'll be coming up. And then we also offer AP computer science, and that's in a very popular class with a decent success rate for it to be a new class. So we're also looking at some more classes that we can offer, and I'd like to get those in place next year so that when it comes time for the mandate, we've tried it out before we drive it, type deal. And we're looking at some intro to computer sciences and trying to come up with some local options based on what the state has listed. If you look at the state list, it's probably 80 classes. And you're like, ooh, this is a variety. But in CTE, you always have to take a level 1 before you take a level 2. And probably 45% of those are level 2 classes. So, you know, it really reduces us down, but we're looking at and exploring different options with it so our students can have that opportunity and earn that credit. And hopefully it can build into a successful pathway for them. There's a tremendous job market. I don't know how I know that. Maybe I've got a child in it, but computer science is really big right now. A good question. Any other questions?
Earl, I'd like to say how much I appreciate you serving as that contact person for our local our local businesses who had reached out. I know, and I had put them along to you, and I've heard that you've been so responsive and just, it sounds like you've taken the information from those conversations to inform this plan. I did have a question about an example of a non-traditional participation in CTE. What does that look like?
So that's where a non-traditional gender takes a class. So
Gotcha.
for example, we have a lot of young ladies in welding and automotives, and that's a really good example. Teaching as a profession, we have a male signing up in it and completing that. Health science is another. Agriculture, believe it or not, is one of those non-traditional.
I wasn't sure what that meant. And the
Bell
other
shapes.
thing is the CTE course guide flip book. Whoever created that, they need to be congratulated and lifted
That's
up.
something we stole from another district.
Okay.
Borrow, you don't steal, you borrow.
Right, we borrowed,
But
okay.
there was something similar existed to that, and we heard from feedback from, gosh, I guess it was the 2022 plan. We didn't know that happened. I would ask questions like, well, did you know this was honors? Did you know this articulated? And so just over the years, we built that. We want to continue to make that a work in progress. It's a work in
Excellent.
progress. We convert it over. But thank you. It's been a big effort by several folks.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the 24-26 CTE local plan.
I move that we approve the plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, raise your hand. You're ready to go.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roden, I'll have a signature sheet if you want to stop by. Thank you.
Will do. Next, we've got the driver's education fee proposal.
So, Amanda and I have been talking about this for, some time. Ashe County Schools has been fortunate to be able to provide driver's education to students free of charge for many years. And unfortunately, we've had a reduction in state allotments and, for inflation that happens at the same time. And so the district, won't be able to really provide that service for free. But it will still be able to be at a much reduced cost. The one particular program in the area charges $350 per child. If you had to take your child off a couple years ago during COVID off the mountain to learn to drive, that was about $350, $400, depending on where you went. So it can be quite expensive. We're proposing to have, for a couple of reasons, a $40 per student fee, and which is about 10% of what it's costing us in order to offer driver's education. The driving school has an issue with students signing up online class and then not showing up, and we think that and we still get charged anyway. And so I think this would, having a little stake in the game will help to encourage attendance, as well as help us to be able to offer this at a very reasonable price. And so essentially we would generate somewhere between $7,200 and $9,600 to offset the cost. The rest of it we've paid locally, but I think this is a good effort to still be good to our families. Obviously, we would have, for kids who are in need and could not pay the $40, there would be a fee waiver process as we do in other places. But I also think that this is unfortunately some things are not free anymore. And I think it's a reasonable start. It's not charging half or $350, which is a lot of money. The online class, how much is the online class alone? And then the driving part's $300. Just the driving part.
The online class, it's $1,500.
So split up among the kids.
So you could have more kids in one class than another, but the price for the class is still $1,500.
$350 just to drive is what the cost is for this.
Well, we're paying for the class anyway, so whether they show up or not, we still have to pay that $1,500. So how many students are not showing up for those classes?
He did, he just said it would give a little skin game. They didn't show up. Probably frustrating them as they're trying to schedule drivers and things that they've not completed their class for or something. Do that, get the drivers.
I'm just concerned about additional fees for families at this point. Families are stressed out to the max.
And this was one of the ones I would.
And it-
I
and
don't feel
longer.
more of this, and I don't want to charge for transcripts ever either, so this was one that we went back and. Years.
The thing that I also am concerned about, a lot of these kids need their driver's license so they can get a job to help provide for their families. And those folks don't always do the waivers either. They don't know how, or they don't know they're available, and
Sometimes they're too proud.
too proud. That's our mountain culture. So I'm very concerned about charging for this.
We're gonna probably be in the hole this year, $14,000.
That's not what the paper says. It says 9,000.
No, that's the revenue we can earn.
That's what the revenue, we're still gonna go in the hole with
You have to look
this.
at your upcoming class, get your numbers from that. And you never know who's gonna, our class, who's gonna fall out. I never really know how many students we have in our class.
Guys, I will say there's a class starting June 10th. We advertised that out here, Italy last week, registration date 29th, I believe. So I'll have next week what that looks like in this class. There's a maximum 50 per class. So there's been lots of interest in it. So we'll have some numbers for that.
Did they have a problem when they said they had people signing up but not attending? So if they only had 50 slots open, and you had 5 that signed up but didn't show, you knocked 5 other people out of that.
Correct.
In some senses, I would assume, because they would tell you it's full before.
So when it gets full.
Right.
How many classes per year do we have?
Earl, was it one of them?
I think it's about 4 or 5 a year, I think.
4 or 5 a year.
I think so.
Which is more than enough to accommodate the number of students we have, but it's just not necessarily convenient. You know, some classes are more convenient than others because of summertime and athletics.
Are we still having issues with getting all the kids driven?
I think so. I asked him about a waiting list. They will bid right now. But he gives probably need driver coming on his back.
Any other questions? I entertain a motion to approve the driver's education fee proposal.
I'll make the motion that we charge $40 per student and provide waivers for those who can't afford it. I think it's fair.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Next, we've got child nutrition, CEP. See Ms. Woods back there.
As Tammy is coming up there, I want to commend her and Amanda on all the work that they've done to make sure that we've got the right information before you. And thank you, Tammy, on really advocating for children.
Good evening, board, Dr. Cox. Thank you for letting me come before you and share a few numbers and share, I see it as a gain. We've had a gain and things are going well. Students are participating. We could increase our participation. And if we increased our participation, that would give us, a better level playing field. And I could break even. Increased our participation. I keep saying that. But
Encourage kids to eat breakfast and lunch every day.
Pray for a mild winter.
Yeah, play for not being out all January.
Yeah, January, we only came to school 7 days. That probably would have broken me.
Was you in school 7 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's surprising, not being.
it ended up being about $107,000 loss in January. Because we're not in school.
Amy, would you explain to me how this works? Because when I was reading through this, I mean, you probably have before, and I apologize, but you know,
It's rambled together some of it.
you know, if nobody's paying for lunch, how do we get our revenue, and how does that pay back from whatever source? Is that?
Okay, it's the USDA federal funding, and so
Right.
that is there's a formula. I'm sure that on that one document, it shows the formula that's involved there. So if we have, over 60% of our students receive some type of other services, you know, from Department of Social Services, TANF, food stamps, something of that nature, they are what's considered directly certified. And so directly certified students, we get those students at 100% reimbursement. And so if our percentage at that school is over the 60, then we can get that whole school at the 100%. And so it's based on numbers of children that are directly certified at the school. And then we combine some schools to make that formula a little better, you know, and it's a little math project. You would love it, Diane. You need to come help me.
Yeah, math was really my strong point. Yeah, right. But at the same time, what about the state program that we were involved with last year? Is this just strictly the USDA one?
Well, it was USDA funded also. It's just a different type of payment method. The community eligibility provision, you know, is what this is called, and that is concerning, you know, like I said, the students and faculty, and not faculty, the students that, you know, fall under the direct certification. And then the other method, free and reduced, is what that's called. And that is where everybody has to fill out an application.
Right.
And then it is based on what those applications determine income levels are. It's free, reduced, and paid. With CEP, it is either you get a rate for free and then you get a rate for, you know, paid. It's, you know, like 37 cents, something like that per student over. So it's every student in the enrollment is eligible for one or the other.
And it's tied to how many participate, how many
Yeah.
eat breakfast or lunch.
Yes,
Right.
so it's increased. That was another number that increased. Our breakfast increased by 58%, which I thought was outstanding. And I think there's going to be opportunities for that to increase more, because we're going to definitely set back up like a grab and grow center, like at Mountain View Elementary, back in their gym area where their students get off the buses and go straight to there. They can grab their lunch and then move on to their classrooms. So, you know, because a lot of times kids don't want to come into the cafeteria first. They want to go to the gym.
So have we paid the difference out of the fund balance in the years past? Is that what we would do this year if there's a difference?
Well, the difference in the past, you know, you have your paid revenue come in that we don't have now.
Right.
And then you had the reduced revenue. It actually, we used more fund balance the year before than we're going to use this year. We think it'll be somewhere between $51,000 and $75,000. Won't know until the audit's over.
Yeah. I'm a little more optimistic. I think it'll be less than 51,000. I think that I've got some inventory issues going on with Titan, and they are coming to help us with that. And I think that whenever I get those numbers in there and we see what we really have, you know, going on with food on hand, you know.
And this is, they're having a spend down anyway, so.
So they're only supposed to have 3 months of fund balance, and right now she's at 4.6. And I would think that number's a little wonky too because of the inventory issues.
Yes.
So she's supposed to get down closer to 3 months, so she is supposed to be spending our fund balance.
If they can come and take that back if I don't spend it down. So it's good that we spend it down on this first, of course.
And she's been able to buy a couple pieces of equipment this year that she needed, so, you know,
And some that I had to have, not just needed.
she's made lots of repairs this year, lots of repairs.
Isn't that right, Anthony? I don't know, I think it's going, we're gaining ground. You know, it's still a process.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the CEP approval.
Right, do I have a second for that?
I second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me know when we're doing the math, okay?
Okay, I'll call you down. Oh, we need to this week.
I don't use stuff.
Next, we've got one of the items added to the agenda, which is the athletic overnight summer camps on there. I guess Dr. Cox, will that be you?
That's fine. Brian Hampton, sent me an email that we have, 3 different sports who are wanting to do summer camps, with their students. The bus is paid for by athletics and everything else is done, because this is optional, through, the athletes' parents. Again, wrestling is at Landry University, coming up at the end of this week and weekend, 15 wrestlers and 4 coaches. Men's basketball at Wake Forest University, coming up the following week, and they have 20 athletes and 3 coaches. Women's basketball is NC State University, again, the following week, and that's women's basketball with 18 athletes and 2 coaches. And so they're essentially staying with their parents or paid for by their parents. And the bus is taking the student athletes to the events. Anything else that I missed, Dustin?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve these athletic overnight camp requests for the summer.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries.
Does our insurance cover all that? I mean, the insurance covers everything. They do.
Yeah, they're traveling on our buses, so Megan would tell me if I wasn't.
Next, we have the second added item on the agenda, which is the Westwood Elementary property request. Entertain a motion for that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we deny this request.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we're going into updates and discussions, items for the board. First item under that is the policy authority, which is attendance.
So I guess this is me and any principal and that's here. But I think, as you know, we've talked about attendance. It's in our school improvement plan. We've had attendance across the country has been really low compared to what we want it to be. It's an issue across the state as well. And so we're no different in a lot of ways. A couple of years ago, we were between 35 and 38% of our students were chronically absent. So that means they miss 10% or more of their days. And that's significant because if you're not here, it's hard to learn. And while, you know, there are varying levels of that, you know, especially if you're not here and you're not doing your work, you're really not, you're really struggling. And this past year, it's right around the 21.5% mark. So we've made some significant progress toward getting kids to school for a lot of reasons. I know Jamie and her team make a lot of home visits, and a lot of those, you know, all those positions are grant funded. So thankfully, you guys support us in those efforts. Making phone calls. I know our teachers and administrators and counselors, and it's an all-in effort to get kids to school. But attendance is still an issue. And we want
some community buy-in on getting kids to school. And I'm not quite sure. I think we've all had the discussions. I've been to every school over the past couple of weeks. And attendance is probably the biggest concern of our teachers and staff, is getting kids to school, because we want them to be there. We want them to learn. We want them to thrive and do their best. And so we need parents in our community to join the effort in attendance. So what we would like to do is have a committee this summer that really looks at these attendance strategies. I've got a group of people from each school going to a Bill Daggett conference, and one of the side conferences is they're going to map out a plan for attendance based on proven strategies. But we want to look at this policy and have input from families that from all over, from input from our teachers and staff to really narrow down some of the strategies that we can use, and then put some things in place, whether it be incentives like the high school did this year. If you miss 6 or less classes in the semester and you had an A in the class, and you don't have to take the teacher-made final exam. And maybe that's brought some of our kids to the table and allowed them to see attendance as important. But I think we're going to have some additional strategies and maybe some additional parameters to bring back to the board on what that could really look like. So that's the purpose of this discussion. We've got principals here that I'm sure are willing to help out, but we feel like that we need to have a focused effort on this so that we can get kids to school and help them to thrive. Any of my principals have anything else you'd like to say to add to that? I mean, this has been a discussion all year long, and like I said, I think we've made some efforts, but 21% is 540 some children. Does that sound right? 21%, about 540 some children are chronically absent from school. So just to put that, if we have 2,606 kids that were on our rolls. So is that right? 520 some children? It's over 500 children that are chronically absent from school. So we've got to, I want to work on the right work, and I want to have some partners in the community that say, hey, this is what we're going to do to help us out in that area. And like I said, it may be positive incentives, it may be additional expectations and parameters that we have to put around it. But if somebody wants to join us on that, we would love to be able to have a joint effort. Or suggestions of, I've had a couple of parents who were at our needs assessment meeting that we had about 2 weeks ago, Julie. And we had a parent survey that went out, and that needs assessment meeting. I've had a couple parents that were like, well, wait a second here, what about vacation? What about, they brought up a lot of things that I think we need to consider as an opinion. But our number one priority is kids coming to school to learn. So what is it that we need to do to get kids and families invested in children's learning on that level? What does that look like?
Well, I guess my concern is that we have this policy, usually we have 30 days, and then we adopt a policy. I don't see any differences here. Are we going to be able to do that in 30 days?
So my plan is to bring it back to the August meeting. So we have plenty of time. If the August meeting is 2 weeks before school starts, it gives ample opportunity for us to communicate that out, whether it be to students through the handbook. But it gives us an opportunity between now and even the end of this month to have some things in place. But if we have to extend it over the summer and do that at the August, whatever it is, 5th meeting, I don't remember what the date is, that we can do that then. So it gives us all summer.
This has been an ongoing conversation since I was the principal at Boundary, because of the responsibility of a child getting to school changes in elementary school and compared to the high school. The responsibilities on the parents. It's not the child's fault. So it gets a little sticky, but I have a concern with the extracurricular activities taking students out of their 4th block class, and at no one's fault. I mean, we want them to participate, and I know we have to travel far because of our, what is it that we're in?
The conference.
The conference that we're in. So just, in your conversations, if you would take note of those couple of things.
Well, and we've had those conversations. I mean,
I don't know a solution.
Yeah, I think it would be important to hear from businesses within our community too, because, you know, Mr. Farmer brought up a good point at the meeting that, you know, just being present is an issue in itself. And I'm not speaking, not to throw my husband in this, but anybody that's trying to run a business, it's hard to get people to come to work. And so I think hearing from the community that perspective too, you know, that's one of the top things is just getting people to come to work, hiring people that will show up. Because if we can do that, then they'll be there to learn. But, you know, they have to, the parents have to kind of equate that to, I'm expected to do my job, my kids are expected to go to school. So there has, I think, the community could help us in that aspect, just hearing from some business owners, maybe doing some surveys on the importance of attendance and that kind of.
Is the procedure when we miss more than 10 days still a letter? And then is there any individual conferencing going on with our students?
Jamie, you want to speak to?
We meet monthly at each school with the attendance team. Letters are sent on the 3rd unexcused, the 6th unexcused, the 10th unexcused, or the 10th total. We, after 6 unexcused, we are making contacts with those families. We set up mediations and agreements. We never file charges on families and parents without attempting a mediation agreement first. Home visits are attempted, barriers, all of those conversations are happening prior to the 10-day unexcused, which keeps us extremely busy. And a lot of times it is apparent, especially when you get up to about middle school. So we have to make them understand what the rules are. Sometimes they don't know the rules and law. So we educate the parents. It's an educational opportunity for them. And we want to remove barriers. We found out one time after several days that we just needed to rewrite a bus for this kid because she was getting dropped off at grandma's and getting on the bus at grandma's house in the mornings, 3 days a week or whatever. So just communication a lot of times. And I think that as a teacher, I remember like very clearly it being the expectation of if that child's missed more than 3 days and I haven't had communication with the parents, why? Picking the phone up and calling. And I know our teachers are doing that as well. So yes, there is at each level, there are all those communications going out. A daily call goes out.
Yeah.
If your child's absent or charged.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
I get those.
Yeah, excused or not, but it is about, we're looking at it, excused or not,
Sorry.
it puts you at risk.
I think we're gonna have to get out of the box to find solutions to this because in my experience, we've tried about everything that we know to do. To try to do this for the parents, but the climate seems different now. Lynn, you were talking about people not showing up from work. Back in the day, that would never have happened. Mom and dad went to work no matter what, we went to work no matter what. I mean,
I went to school no matter what.
yeah, buddy. Yeah, we never missed. And so how do we, I guess the climate change needs to be addressed. How do we influence what is changing in our culture about attendance and responsibilities? Because I see less responsibility being placed on the kids than what we had as children. And I think that makes it harder to get them to school because they don't see that it is their responsibility to attend. And then the parents as well. It's their responsibility to get them there.
Fighting up for COVID because we were telling them to stay.
That's
All the time. And so then when it was okay for them to be back, they're like, why is it okay for me to be back now? He has the sniffles. So it has been very difficult. It was very conflicting messaging happening, so.
Two different stories. It's two different stories.
Well,
It needs to be, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
One piece that needs to be addressed too is the tardy situation. Because I had several students with 40+ targets that's coming in. It could be 2 minutes, but lots of times it's 15 to 20 minutes. And we can't do anything about it. They can do it every day of the year, and there's nothing, our hands are tied.
And oftentimes they're missing their reading block first thing in the morning, and so kids who are tardy are.
90% of the time, they're little.
Well, yes, yeah.
Kindergartners, first graders, they're missing letter laying, they're missing reading instructions, and they're getting so far behind.
Adam.
They're just digging a hole, and it's not their fault.
We have a lot more parents dropping their kids off at school, don't we, than driving on the bus. So that's.
And on all of those
And from the
situations,
school.
I have made efforts to try to offer buses, and it has been declined.
Now, the high school can offer the incentive of not taking the test. I don't think our elementary schools have that option, although we probably have great attendance if we didn't have to take the end of the year test or the check-ins. That might be the biggest incentive of all. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So we're really gonna have to think about how to change the climate and how to inform the parents and educate the parents, as Jamie is saying for this.
Whatever we do, I want to support our principals 100% in implementing the policy that we come up with. You have to have that.
Exactly.
So how many days do we allow the high school students to miss first semester before they're in trouble?
So
Not a way to do
What?
it. There's not, it's.
What happened to the 5 days per semester, which in fact turns into 10 days because you're on the semester? Why don't we set a limit of how many days you can miss before consequences set in? We used to, we didn't have absences when I was teaching.
Love to do it.
We didn't have tardies. We didn't have tardies because there was punishment for a tardy. If you were tardy, it counted so much and you got 3 tardies, it was a day missed. My students were in their seat when the bell rang with the pencil in the hand. The more you give a kid, the more they take, and we need to learn that.
Well, I think that that's why we're bringing back the policy, because I think we're going to have to put in some very specific parameters
Like we are too.
is within the law to make this really have, I don't know, there's gotta be a visual for people to see, this is my limit. And some people will make it to that limit, but if they don't go over that limit, that's a win for us at this point in time.
If you missed over 5 days per semester at the new high school, you had to go down to Mr. Bradley's office, and if you didn't have a good excuse for that 6th day, you didn't pass that semester. And Miss Lindsay's smiling because she knows I'm telling the truth. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I also know that having attendance absence limits helps prepare them for colleges, because many college classes, without, whether it's excused or not, unless you miss a class 3 times in many community colleges and universities, and you're dropped from the course.
Right.
And no refund on the money.
And the bad habit starts in the elementary school, being late, being tardy, not coming, and it goes right on through to the workplace. It does.
Some of the children that Jamie sees are the same family, in high school that we're having trouble with, dropping out, are the same families that we had a difficult time with in the 2nd grade.
I know.
How many cases did you take to court this year?
We've reduced our number greatly. Now, we have done about 80 mediations.
Okay.
And then of those, I would say, honestly, not even 5 per school. We're actually to the point of charging parents. Sure. So 20, 25.
And even with the church returns, what is that?
Okay, well, the first time they got it, it's gonna be continued. 15
Yes.
times. And then we're gonna get a
Exactly.
PJC, which is nothing. And so when they violate, I have to wait until they violate it, then I have to call them back to court with the DA. Then we go and we get put on unsupervised probation, which is again, nothing. And then they will get probation. And if they violate probation after the 3rd time we file charges, typically they will get some stiffer penalty.
And by that time they have 30.
I was gonna say, how many more days can you miss?
Yeah. Till year's over.
Oh, that wouldn't happen. I mean, it's one charge for a year too. Sometimes if they're charged early enough, I can call them back to court mid to spring. and get something in place. And now the judges are working with me to extend the sentence out for like a year and a half.
So I'm hearing from you, Mr. Govett, your kids are missing reading the first part. I'd put PE first or some fun class if they missed and put reading up here.
Well, and that's a good idea, but the problem is studies show that for the little ones, literacy at the beginning of the day is the best time.
I know, but if they're not there, it's not.
I know, that's true.
That's good.
You're talking either way.
I don't know, there's no easy answer. But I mean, seriously,
Only so many can be in
Somebody's like that be in that mood.
That's it. Is there any kind of reward system for them actually being there? You know, like if you're present all so many days, there's this little time you get a special reward or.
So all the schools have socials that are tied to it. They've had pep rallies tied to it. There are positive incentives, and I think the implementation of a lot of those have really helped to bring our attendance numbers down from the 38% to the 21%. But I mean, that's big progress, and I want to commend our people for making that progress. But when you still have over 500 kids that are chronically absent, I mean, it makes me sick to think that that many kids could have had that much more instruction. And this is not even including their excused absences. So if they get COVID or these are unexcused absences. This does not include, because you can't punish for getting COVID or getting the flu or something like that.
you've got 5 absences for one.
But now
High school.
I mean, we're struggling.
In the hospital.
We're struggling with attendance. So it's important enough that I really want to have a focus. Dr. Simmons shared, she's like, you know, we need some sort of an attendance campaign. And we've done that at a lot of our schools. I'll use the middle school as an example. 7th and 8th grade attendance is posted every day in the front office. They say it over the intercom, who has the best attendance. Like, that's really a thing. And I think that's really inched it up into the mid to upper 90% attendance on a regular basis. So it's getting better, but we have a ways to go, and we just need our parents and our community and everybody all in to get kids to school.
That competition factor works for middle school, but it's not the kindergarten's fault that they're not there on time. It's not first graders' fault. It's a parent issue. So we need to target the parents at those younger ages. 7th and 8th grade, make it competitive and you're in, but not the younger ones. So we need to really concentrate on strategies that will work for parents at that younger age, right? Right on that one?
Yes. Well, and it's directly tied to student learning. I mean, it compounds whenever they are missing a day for whatever reason. And we struggle. So thanks for any help that anybody wants to give us.
I just don't want to come. I mean, we're lax. It sounds to me like we're lax, and I just decide I don't want to go to school today, so I'm not going.
I mean, there are a lot of different contributing factors, but that is probably one.
So more work to be done.
Yeah.
On that. Anybody have anything else on that?
You get yours there. Mine didn't miss 3 days.
Next we've got on here under updates is the private service providers discussion on here.
So I'm going to have Terry help to lead this conversation, but I do want to say in your folder that you have there has some information that she will be referring to for you. And then the very top piece is that starts with any provider of the current yearly board approved MOU. That paragraph, Fred is actually wordsmithing that to be added to the proposed policy so that it's more inclusive. We've been really racking our brains as to what we can do to follow what the expectation is and still meet
I guess, still meet what, were shared as that best policy. And so, that would be something we could add to it that allows us some flexibility and allows parents to have some opportunity with somebody that has that MOU for a space outside that classroom.
Okay, in your packets,
If you want to go up to the mic so we can hear, if you don't mind.
in the packet, you have the parent guardian release waiver form, which, every parent has completed this year, and, last year for services, from a private provider in our school district. You also have, the, policy from private, service providers that, was also signed by, the, parents for this year. And you have, the guidelines for the visits and the private service providers that were, completed and signed by both the, principal of the school and the, parent who, has a child that received private service providers. What I'd like to say is that why is this coming to fruition? Is because I've had other, private service providers asking to use our facilities. So with that, we had to have a, conversation about how we will be able to support private service providers in schools. And it truly is just based on an increase of requests that we have had. We've had, I've also given you some notes about some things that, that we've done in collaboration with the, private service provider that we've had in our school district the past couple of 3 years. And, also it was requested about, what we've had as far as training for teachers and teacher assistants and, how problems when they occurred, what they were and how they were handled. And I will say that, when a problem did occur, it was handled immediately, and the, company in which we worked with was very supportive and also followed up with support within their, company to be able to support what, how to correct any type of situations that came to fruition. I did some pros and cons of just having just an autism setting, but, IDEA says that special education is not a place for a placement. It is a service for children rather than a place where children are sent. So therefore, I just gave some, pros and cons of having just an autism classroom or not. As you can see, our teachers and our teacher assistants have, really stepped up their game in the, trainings that, to teach children with autism. We also follow the 27, evidence-based practices by IDEA, that is required. We have, worked with our NCPI, consultant for autism to be able to help support us within the classroom. Dr. Grove has attended, trainings in order to, help support teachers in the classroom. Every classroom has a poster with the 27 evidence-based practices and what they are and a little explanation on how to make sure that they address. And this is above and beyond a teacher having a 4-year degree in special education. Do you have any questions or concerns about, you've seen these forms before because they come with the MOU for every year that we have, moved forward with a private service provider, but it strictly has a lot to do with the requests are being increased. We even had, communication from another, ADA company that has wanted to start serving children within our community, in our schools. And, speech and language therapist, occupational therapist, the health department called to see if they could have a room to be able to start, serving some kids for some developmental screenings and things like that.
I have some real issues with the policy as written excluding all services for these kids. We're not only talking about ABA, we're talking about mental health. And I think we've worked really hard to get some of those mental health services in the school. And some of these providers would be excluded under this policy as it is written. Is that correct, Jamie?
We have, done.
That's what I added today.
And
That's what my.
we worked on that specifically to kind of encompass, at least some restrictions on access in classroom, to be able to still within the confines of the policy work with.
ABA falls under mental health.
Well, it is a medical service. Is that correct?
Medical service falls under mental health.
So it falls under mental health. So, I just got this, so I need to look at this.
Well, this is because, Fred sent us his updated version yesterday that I forwarded to you as soon as I saw that we had it. And then when I was able to talk with him today, trying to figure out, okay, how can we? We don't want to turn off services for people. We want to figure out how we can best serve our kids to reach as many as we can, but also knowing that we can't have, 20 people in one classroom, because there are a handful of classrooms that would have multiple people, because those are the ones who have the highest needs. And so we can't have them all in there at once. So some of these, again, and that becomes a problem within the classroom, having too many adults and very few children.
Well, my understanding is that all of the kids that we have in ABA are self-contained. Is that true?
At this time, yes.
At this time. So they're self-contained, and that their teachers are working very well with these students, and they have made progress, as Mr. Elliott has indicated. And as a former teacher of autistic children, I think that's tremendous. They're our hardest to reach. They are the toughest kids to figure out what's appropriate for them. And a lot of that is teaching them the appropriate behaviors. I know I had a runner one time, and he would just dart out the door before anybody could catch him, and he would run half a mile or a mile away from the high school. And we all were on alert when that happens. And so any of these behaviors that we can address that improve them being able to attend school is least restricted. And so we're not talking about interfering with your children's education. We're talking about a small group in a self-contained classroom. Now, that's not to say we won't have more students, but why can't we, number one, devise some guidelines on who we can, criteria, if you will, who we will accept? And I know we get people asking to come in. Why can't we develop some appropriate guidelines of, we will accept this, but these are the questions that we will ask you if you meet them or not. We can also set up a contract with this company.
We do have all that. And we have been talking a lot about, because our
policy
idea
doesn't have that.
So this particular one that Fred is going to wordsmith for you, says any provider who has a current yearly board approved MOU. So, and we do those every year because you don't want to have multiple years in case, anyway. Can request to meet in a designated space outside the classroom for no more than 1 hour per day during non-core instructional activities, including specially designed instruction and related services, because our primary is teaching and learning. We want our children to be present for the core academic time and the related service time that they get for their IEP or 504. The contractor must have an approval from the parent or guardian at the sole expense of the parent or guardian to provide the private therapy requested by the parent or guardian during that time. And that's what those documents that are attached to the MOU refer to. We already have those in place for these services. Parents or guardians must have a current parent or guardian release and waiver for private therapy services on file with Ashe County Schools, and then Ashe County Schools is not to endorse or supervise the private providers. So that way, those private providers have an opportunity to join in an MOU, but they're not something that we designate, because Terry's Terry's people do have the ability to meet the educational needs of the students and throughout our district. I mean, there's not a requirement by IDEA that her teachers are not trained to do.
I have a couple questions about timing. When does this have to be completed by? Because you said the attorney's still working on it. And I know Polly and I both had issues. I could not even
Yeah.
get into my computer till 3 o'clock. So I haven't even had a chance.
This is only discussion
Only
today,
discussion. So when will we be voting on this?
so we can bring it back at the end of the month for you guys to look at. And as soon as Fred provides that updated, whatever he's gonna wordsmith for this, I will email it to you so that you have it. And, you know, we can make it available for anybody to look at who wants to look at that. And then, you know, we would like to have it in place because we'll have to do MOUs. We do not have a current MOU with the ABA therapy. That one's out. We're gonna have to do current MOUs if we're gonna allow anybody to come in, and all of those get renewed yearly.
I see that this policy might be appropriate for our mental health because we don't want some of those kids being pulled out. However, our autistic children are a different situation. That behavioral therapy will not work for them in an hour a day. It is an ongoing process that helps them in their school day that needs to be consistent in the school day. You can't teach those skills after school because they're situational, and those kids need to be in that situation to learn how to deal with that situation. Am I correct? And I understand that this is a medical thing that we have anyone who is currently certified to do this kind of therapy employed by our school? Yes, please, Jody. I'm
in the self-contained classroom for 26 years, and you're right, the teacher needs to be doing instruction, but my instruction as a self-contained teacher was academics. It was also self-help skills, daily living skills, behavior skills, and I had to be well-trained in all of those areas myself to meet their needs. We weren't going to do anything unless I also did just communication skills. There is no doubt that ABA, the evidence-based practices and ABA therapists are helping students. But at the same time, there are also students in self-contained classrooms who are not being seen by an ABA therapist who are making the same kinds of significant gains. Because there's a student that I can think of in one classroom who, before he was being served in a self-contained classroom, was twice a week he was being seen in the office for behavior referrals. He's in a self-contained classroom with a teacher who is trained in the 27 evidence-based practices. The 27 evidence-based practices are something that we are also trained in. We can access those also. So he's in the classroom with his teacher, and this year there's been one office referral. It's not being served by ABA, the teacher in the classroom is doing the strategies also. In another classroom, I know two students who were autistic, and they came into this teacher's classroom, and they're not being served by ABA, just the teacher, and they were nonverbal. And this year they are using a communication device. They're expressing lots of needs. One of them is able to demonstrate she knows one of correspondence. And I don't have numbers, but significant gains both academically and behaviorally. So self-contained teachers also are trained in evidence-based practices.
Well, I would expect them to be the first ones trained because they're usually the ones that are going to deal with these children.
And not that they're not, like, there may be a place for them to collaborate and help and be part of the classroom. That's also the responsibility of the self-contained teacher.
I want to commend Terry and Jody this year for really making sure that teachers had the resources and identifying some of the issues that we've had with outside people that don't work for us being in our classrooms and making sure that they were equipped with the tools and enough people. We have really small ratios in our self-contained classrooms to help make sure that the needs of the children are met. And I think we're at a 2-to-1 ratio, which is really incredible in those classrooms. And that doesn't happen everywhere. So we're really working to support our teachers to meet the needs of all kids.
I would really like to hear from the teachers that have these students in the classroom as to how it works in their room and how effective it is. And I really am concerned about pulling this support from students who have already been doing this therapy and already have developed these relationships. So if we do a policy that deals with this, I would like to make sure that those folks are at least grandfathered in so that they can continue making the progress. And you know as well as I know, Jody, if we change things on kids, they regress, especially autistic children. They will regress, and we don't want that to happen either. And if we need to set up a different contract or a different kind of service for these guys, we need to continue the service with these guys that have already started.
But we need to also make sure that there's other provisions in there that make sure that the consistency is there. Like Christianity, because it changes quite often.
It changes quite often.
And they have
That's a discussion that we could have with the company, is it not?
Yes. And I have, but what they do is the BTVAs are consistent. They're the ones that oversee the RBTs. But the RBTs are college students or students that they have trained and then they start working and then change, just like.
Are they not supervised? Are they not supervised?
By the BCBA, but that's not.
And it's very inconsistent who is actually with the child all year long. So there's an inconsistency there already. Our classroom teacher is the consistent point, and that's why we wanted to invest in our own people rather than relying upon an outside company that we really don't have a whole lot of control over. I mean, and when they do something wrong,
Have they not been responsive to anything that has not gone correctly?
Everything that has not gone correctly, they have been responsive as quickly as I called them, and that's what I.
Okay, so that's not an issue.
But that also means changing personnel because it's been significant things.
very significant.
I'd like to ask Adam his perspective on what might happen to Kerrigan if we suddenly change her therapy.
She would greatly regress. She's used to this type of therapy. She is a very regimented, routine young lady. And if we change this on her, she will have regression. Pull this from schools. She will have to have a one-on-one. We'll see to it if that's put into her IEP.
Does she continue her therapy over the summer now?
Yes, ma'am, she does.
How many hours of therapy does she get?
She currently receives 35 hours of therapy per week, which is down from last year, which was 40 hours per week.
So the
Now,
goal,
these hours that she receives have to be approved by BCPS, the company itself, which is then sent to Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina that has their own set of medical team. They have their own BCBAs that review the request every 6 months for her hours of service. So it is a very stringent process, and that she has to show a need for this service. This is not just a service. If I had a child that I said, I want my child to have ABA, it is a very stringent and long process to receive this service. Recently in North Carolina, there has been legislation that no insurance company can withhold or make a cap on this type of mental health service. This is allowed through any insurance in North Carolina. This is approved. Our insurance pays close to $15,000 a year, which we pay some of that with co-pays and such as that. But this is a very strict regimented process, and if done incorrectly, would not checks and balances in it, it could be detrimental, it could be dangerous to a child. Because you are teaching them behaviors that arise throughout the classroom, or throughout the class day. And at no point in time does she miss class. Her therapists go with her everywhere she goes in school, whether it's the regular ed, or the self-contained classroom, or if it is to, enrichment. They travel with her. She misses zero amount of class time for her therapy.
And a teacher assistant goes also because we're ultimately responsible for that child. So she has basically two people. She really does have, it's in a one-on-one, and so do the other children. So do the
Have
other
we
children.
exited any of the students out of ABA therapy based on progress?
One child.
Out of count, out of 4, is that right? Out of 4? Well, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. You can do that with an autistic child. And how is that child doing now? Do they have the skills they need to be successful with least restrictive?
Yes, they didn't have very many hours in our school services. But I can't go into any more detail.
Well, I'm sure
It's
that's confidential.
confidentiality.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
I assume more information to be worked on in discussion with this.
So I'll send you whatever the update is that we receive, and if he provides any additional guidance, certainly I'll provide that to you as well.
And we're working just on parameters. That's basically what we need to work on is parameters for having private service providers in school. At the very beginning, and even with my continued conversations with Dr. Cox, it's not a not want to, it's just that
How
what's
can they?
happening and what's evolved is how we need to be able to address it. And making sure that, we're not being discriminatory towards other providers and that are requesting, services to be provided also in schools and things like that. And that's how it all came about. It wasn't anything having to do with, anything, but we have several more people asking to use our facilities for private service.
So we really need to think about the policy and make sure that we're covering those kinds of issues, whatever we decide. And it is up to us, true, to develop this policy as we see fit for our school system. Thank you. And I'm not combative either. I want to do what's best for all of our children.
And we do, and you all have been part of those discussions, and we have, we don't want it to be part of them. Collaborative, cooperative, and giving children all that they can possibly have. It's just that you have to have.
It's how can we?
Yes,
It's how can we provide services? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I have a motion for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
I got 3 seconds, so that's good. All in favor, raise your hand. There you go. All right, thank you all.